The Peugeot 3008 is one of those cars that deserves to be seen in more Australian driveways than it currently is. This updated and facelifted model not only looks more interesting and could cause more eyeballs to turn its way, but it's also got a bigger and better media system and also some improvements to safety technology. Will these changes finally see the 3008 score the recognition it deserves? Well, it's never going to be a mainstream player against the likes of the Toyota RAV4, and in fact could be actually seen as an alternative to an Audi Q2 or a Volvo XC40, at least on price. So let me show you around this updated 2021 model Peugeot 3008. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to get through here, so if you are keen to jump ahead, you can. There are time codes on your screen now, or chapter markers in the timeline below if you're watching on YouTube. Also down there on YouTube, you'll find a link to my full detailed review of the 2021 Peugeot 3008 range. And there you'll also find a place where you can leave a comment and tell us what you think of this car, or our reviews, let us know. First up, we're going to take a look at the design of this 2021 updated model. There's no other SUV on the market that looks quite like the Peugeot 3008. Actually, that's not true. There is the Peugeot 5008, which is essentially a 7-seat version, a longer version of this car. And it looks great too. I think this is one of the best looking mid-size SUVs on the market. But tell us what you think in the comments section below. The front of the updated 3008 is now even more eye-catching than before, thanks to a redesigned grille, front bumper and headlights. The LED front lights also include integrated fog lights and daytime running lights, but honestly it's the way the grille shreds away horizontally, broadening the stance of the car visually, that makes this area the most interesting. In profile, there are new wheel designs with the lower grades riding on 18s and higher spec models on 19s. The top spec 3008 GT Sport comes with a black pack to make it stand out a bit more as well. At the rear, the taillights are now full LED with sequential indicators, and the finish is a smoked look that extends into the boot strip. It's very tidy. I've always thought of the interior of the current raft of Peugeot models as being up there with the best in class, but that's provided you can find a comfortable driving position. The iCockpit layout isn't to all tastes. But the layout of the cabin is interesting, and it certainly offers a number of talking points when it comes to trim finishes and the way the dashboard seems to have multiple tiers and angles to it. We'll take a closer look inside the updated Peugeot 3008 soon, but next we're going to take a look at the range and pricing. Peugeot isn't pretending to be a budget player in the market, so it's no surprise that the 3008 is kind of expensive for what it is. It's pretty close to, say, an Audi Q2 or a Volvo XC40 when it comes to price. Here's a more detailed rundown. Opening the lineup is the Allure model, which comes with some desirable standard gear including LED lighting front and rear, 18-inch alloy wheels, a leather steering wheel, 10-inch touchscreen media system with sat-nav, a 12.3-inch driver info screen, manual adjust front seats, and the seat trim is a fake leather and cloth combination. Above it is the GT grade, which you can have in petrol or diesel. It has slightly different 18-inch alloy wheels, adaptive LED headlights, a different front bumper finish, twin exhaust tips, a black roof and mirror caps, and the interior has a perforated leather steering wheel, different trim, as well as a dark headliner. Topping the range for now is the GT Sport variant, which is pricey but gets a more powerful petrol engine, more on that in a sec. The GT Sport also scores 19-inch wheels, an exterior black pack which looks more sinister than the chrome trim of the lower models, a 10-speaker sound system, electric front seat adjustment with heating, and Napa leather seat trim. Yep, the Peugeot 3008 pricing is a little high, especially considering there's no all-wheel drive model, and there's going to be a plug-in hybrid version of this car later in 2021, which will no doubt push the price even further up. And you've got to see some of the options prices as well. Hit that link at the top of your screen to go to our full detailed review where you'll see just how expensive some of the options are for this car. Next up, we're going to jump inside the 3008. mentioned in the design section, the Peugeot 3008 has the iCockpit setup. Now what that means is this steering wheel is small and it's set low, so you look over the top of it at the instruments above. It's a 12.3-inch fully digital instrument cluster, and it's very clear and very crisp and also very configurable. There's a bunch of different screens you can set up and basically have it how you like. But this position of this steering wheel isn't going to be to all tastes. Some people hate this setup. I don't. I think it's really quite novel. It's been around for a while, but I still think that it's a nice way of driving a car. You sort of look out over everything rather than looking through the steering wheel at the instruments. And I think it's cool. There's also a 10-inch touchscreen media system with Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and SatNav all included, as well as digital radio and Bluetooth as well. It's pretty good, although I will say that it's quite annoying that you have to use the screen to adjust the fan and temperature controls. There are some hotkeys down here for you to use to get to those different menus, like the climate control, but it's not quite as quick or as intuitive as it could be, especially if there were just knobs and dials instead. But that's the way Peugeot's going with its infotainment and I guess HVAC control design, and that's just what you have to live with. It is a little bit improved by the fact that there is a volume knob. You don't have to touch the screen to turn up the volume, which is good, but it might not be to all tastes. So make sure you spend a bit of time in one if you are considering buying a Peugeot 3008. In terms of other design highlights, obviously the look of this cabin is quite fetching. There are some really nice materials. Soft touch on the dashboard, this wood look finish as well, which is quite nice. And there's a lot of chrome and sort of shiny bits which can catch the light depending on the day, but you don't end up getting blinded like in some other cars that have chrome that just seems to shine right in your face. This car's also got the optional leather pack, which doesn't just come with leather. Obviously this quilted leather seat is actually beautiful to look at, and it's very comfortable as well. But for the driver, there's also a massage function, which is great, electric seat adjustment, and both front seats get heating as well, which is quite nice. I really like the feel of this cabin. It's quite plush, but it's also unusually practical. There are some elements in here that you might not expect of a French car, because the French don't really get the whole take a coffee with you when you go for a drive. So there are cup holders here, and there's also a really quite deep center console bin in there, and I'll show you the cup holders actually kind of fit a cup, and they also fit a bottle, which is unusual for a French car. Yep, there's also bottle holders in the doors as well as storage caddies there. There's another storage caddy in front of this rather oddly styled shifter, which also includes wireless phone charging, which is nice. There's a USB port there as well, and there's a few more USBs in the back. Let's have a look in there. Kids are gonna love it back here. USB chargers, which is good for keeping charged up on the road trip. There's also rear seat air vents with directional ability as well, which is pretty nice. There's a pair of map pockets on the seat backs too, and there's also a cup holder armrest, but that's not very good. That's not going to stay there. Don't put hot drinks in there, but you can sort of wedge in a bottle, which is not too bad, but it's a nice armrest anyway. And in terms of space and comfort, this seat is set for me, 182 centimeters or 6 foot. And as you can see, I've got just enough room behind my own driving position. So if you've got tall teenagers or you carry adults around a lot, then you'll need to consider that. It's not the biggest car in terms of backseat space, but I've got enough headroom and there's enough width to the cabin to fit 3 across, provided they don't have long legs, because that bit there might end up interrupting the rear legroom. Although it is a flat floor, so there's good foot space. And if you have kids, there are dual ISOFIX child seat anchor points and 3 top tether points as well. Now let's check out the boot. Boot space is claimed to be 591 litres, which is actually quite a lot. As you can see, it means you can fit our CarsGuide luggage with plenty of room to spare. 591 litres is a lot for a mid-size SUV, helped by the fact that this has one of those dual level floors, so you can lower the floor, and that it's front-wheel drive, which means you don't have any all-wheel drive hardware underneath there taking up all that space. So that's an advantage for some buyers. And those seats fold flat to offer 1,670 litres of cargo capacity. Now, all 3008s come with an electric tailgate. It is a little slow, but it might be a handy option for you. Hey, have you subscribed to our YouTube channel yet? Make sure you do. Hit that bell icon and you'll get a notification on your phone for every new upload that we do. We know that you'd love to stay in touch with us like that. Next, we're going to take a look at the safety specs. The Peugeot 3008 was awarded the maximum 5-star ANCAP safety rating in 2016. Yep, that's a pretty old score, but it's still valid. Here's a rundown of what safety tech you get in the entire range. There's auto emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection, lane departure warning, auto high beam lights, and blind spot monitoring. All models come with a 360-degree reversing camera, front and rear parking sensors are standard, and the GT grades have lane keeping assistance. Plus, all models come with a semi-autonomous parking system fitted as well, and there are 6 airbags standard too. So, that's the safety specs. Next, we're going to take a look under the bonnet. The variant you choose determines the powertrain you get in the 3008 range, and that's a bit of an odd stance because more and more brands are moving towards streamlining the powertrain options available as we move towards electrification. But that's not the case with the 3008, although the Allure grade and the GT petrol, which is what you see here, have the same turbocharged engine. Then there's a more powerful turbo diesel, the GT diesel, and an even more powerful petrol version of the GT, which is called the GT Sport. Here's all the details. The Allure and GT petrol models are powered by a 1.6 litre 4-cylinder turbo, good for 121 kilowatts of power and 240 newton meters of torque. The Allure and GT petrol come standard with a 6-speed automatic transmission. The GT diesel model runs a 2-litre turbo 4-cylinder with 131 kilowatts and a huge 400 newton meters of torque, which is a lot to go through the front tyres, and all 3008 models are front-wheel drive only. The GT diesel has an 8-speed automatic. And the GT Sport is the punchy petrol range topper with 133 kilowatts of power and 250 newton meters of torque. Good outputs for the class, and it runs an 8-speed auto as well. There's a plug-in hybrid version of the 3008 coming later in 2021, which will offer you the opportunity to drive electric at urban commute time and still have a petrol engine if you need to do longer distance driving. And we'll cover that car in a bit more detail when it gets here. But now we're going to take a look at the entire range of 3008s and see just how much fuel these ones currently use. The 3008 range has 4 variants and 3 powertrains available. And even though one of those powertrains is shared across 2 models, there's a difference in the official combined cycle fuel consumption figure for those 2 variants with the same engine. Now, all the official figures are on your screen now. And if you're wondering what we've seen in our real world testing of this GT petrol model, that figure is on your screen now as well. Remember, there's a miserly plug-in hybrid version coming, and it'll be even better on fuel, at least when it comes to claimed fuel consumption. Next up, we're going to take a look at the ownership prospects of the Peugeot 3008. Peugeot Australia offers competitive warranty cover of 5 years and unlimited kilometres, and there's also 5 years of roadside assistance included too. The average annual cost over the 5 years of cap price coverage ranges between $527.80 and $568.20, which is a lot. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit that pop out at the top of your screen so you can go and check out my detailed review, which has all the pricing for each of the different variants in the range when it comes to servicing. Next, it's time to go for a drive. Okay, so first things first, I've got some trouble turning this car on. And what I mean by that is when I press the button to start it up, it won't start. You've got to really put your foot right down hard on the brake pedal and hold the start button for a couple of seconds for it to basically ignite the engine. And then I have some trouble sometimes getting it between drive and reverse with this weird shifter. But maybe I'm just impatient. Anyway, let's go for a drive and I'll tell you some of my other thoughts about this 2021 Peugeot 3008. This car, as I've mentioned, is the GT petrol model, so it's a mid-spec grade and it gets the least powerful petrol engine. Not that you'd know it's the least powerful option, because this 1.6 has easily enough power and torque to do the job for most people. In fact, unless you're looking for a performance small SUV, then you're not going to need much more than that. And that's why I would say that you don't really need to go up to the GT Sport grade unless you're really keen on the look of that car compared to this one, or even the Allure model that sits below this one. But there are going to be people out there who will also want 8 gears instead of 6. That's what this car has, a 6-speed automatic transmission, and it's front-wheel drive, and that means that you can't really venture too far off the beaten track, but most people with these sorts of SUVs generally don't. They might encounter a gravel track every now and then, and it's more than capable of dealing with that sort of terrain. But that 6-speed automatic does get in the way of progress a little bit, and it can be laggy to action a shift, to drop a couple of gears, and that means that it just isn't as, well, intuitive as it could be. At lower speeds, like I'm talking up to 30 or 40 k's an hour in urban driving situations like this, it's not as big of an issue, but then again, it's not quite as good as it could be. Can't wait to drive one of the other variants to see whether the 8-speed automatic is a better option. I've also got a couple of issues with the way that you have to shift between park and reverse and drive. This shifter is just not as intuitive as it could be either, but then again, you might get used to it the longer you spend with the car. But I do have an issue with the reverse camera, which has a 360-degree camera as well, but it has to fill in the gap around you on the screen. You'll see what I'm talking about now. And what that means is it just isn't as good as some of the other reversing cameras out there. And the resolution's a little bit poor as well. The fact that Peugeot is pitching this as more of a premium alternative to the mainstream SUVs in the market means that it has to be refined, and it really is. The fact that this car doesn't have an engine start-stop system, this particular spec, does help with that to a degree. I mean, it might not help the environment, but it does make it just a little bit more livable because the car's not chugging on and off all the time. But also, it's quiet in here. The engine's not too loud, there's not very much road noise to contend with at all, and there's very little wind noise too. It's a really sort of cocoon-like space. It's really pleasant. One of the pre-existing strengths of this car, even with the pre-facelift model, is the fact that it has a really, really well-sorted ride. The comfort on offer here is excellent, even on 18-inch wheels with low-profile tyres. It's comfortable, it's well-controlled. It's not quite as sporty as some other SUVs in this class, but I would argue that it doesn't need to be. And in fact, it's better for that. And what it means is that you, instead of maybe sticking really tight and hard on the road, you do sort of bobble a little bit at times, but it's never to the point of annoyance. And the steering is light and pretty direct. Now, at higher speeds, I've actually found it's a bit too direct. It feels like it's twitchy even when you are going, say, 80 to 100 k's an hour on a more country road. You might find that it sort of pivots a little bit too quickly, and that might be something you just need to get used to. I know that I have over my time with this car. The Peugeot 3008 remains an interesting mid-size SUV that deserves to do well in the Australian market, but its cause isn't helped by the fact that its pricing is high and so are its maintenance costs. In terms of our pick of the range, we think the Allure would be the best model. Even though it's the cheapest version, it seems to offer quite a lot for your money. Is that the one that you would choose? Let us know in the comments section below. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Hit that bell icon so you can stay up to date with all of our new video reviews. Now, you might be wondering about the score for the Peugeot 3008 range for 2021. Well, here it is.